Hello everybody. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. We are going to be reviewing J-Team OMG today. If you're watching this, Nova Nouse has probably already been up. I did KBG Nova earlier as well, so check those out. I really wanted to do this one because I was expecting this to be a quick 2-0 for OMG, honestly. Before we get into that though, follow the Twitter if you're interested for games that I maybe don't do VOD reviews on, because I'll talk about like WHGJDG is one of those games, and I talked about it on Twitter. So that's where you should follow me for. But I wanted to do this game in specific because first of all, it's a weekday, so I get some more time to actually put into it. I think my analysis on Nova Analysis wasn't like the best. I wasn't like in love with how I performed on it. The other thing is I really want to talk about this guy right here. He is his like I haven't paid attention to that much macro from J Team because honestly they haven't looked that impressive. But like I don't know who it is within J Team, but they just fucking pump out great ADCs like Pan X1. And I personally think that X1 looks like one of the best ADCs in China, given the performances that he's put out so far. And so I really wanted to talk about him in a little bit more detail and sort of go into specifics on why I think he's so good. Is that locked? Okay, it's locked. So we're gonna see draft here. Let's talk about it. Um, Hecarim ban, uh, Fiddle ban. I don't love the Zai ban because again, I've spoke about it before. I don't think she does enough damage. I just don't love her. Also, teams just can't draft around her properly, so there's no reason to pick her because like there's a good chance they pick Zaya here if she's up, and like Zaya with this team composition is kind of fucking dog shit. Uh, so you love to see it when they pick Zaya with comps that make no sense. So I don't know why people are banning Zaya when she's not actually that good. I would be more scared of a Ziggs at this point, still second or third best champion in the game, and he's getting dropped because Riot is fucking stupid with how they do their rules. Shen ban makes sense. Fior ban makes sense. Um, Evelyn ban makes sense. I haven't spoke about Eve a ton. I kind of am waiting for there to be a really good game with her, but she is insanely good right now. Probably the best early game jungler in the game, which sounds insane to say, but like she just does so much damage, and like her stealth is really useful as a tool. I do want to talk a little bit more about her in depth. I just haven't really gotten the chance. Okay, we see, what do we see? We see B1 Gragas. That's normal. We don't see Gragas flexed. I think he can be flexed. I wouldn't love him if he was mid, but I think like jungle top Gragas are very playable right now, and so I'm waiting for the day. Specifically, someone like TE, I think is probably the most likely to flex him. Will flex him, and then yeah, I'm gonna finally fucking be able to talk my shit. Camille Orn, don't love Camille here. Like I said, constantly, I think that Camille is not good if Jax or Fiora specifically are up because they can kind of fist her, and you don't want to play Camille into them. Other than that, I think she beats a lot of the other top laners in the meta right now, or like in that are popular right now. But like she's probably the most popular one, which is still insane. People need to drop her already. Like Jax, I didn't really speak on Ornn. Ornn's good here. Basically second best support behind Gragas at this point in time. It's also really hard to play into Gragas right now. I think I think he's probably the best support in the game by far. Because like there's no one you can play into him because he's like an engaged tank support, right? Like he's like if Nautilus had like I don't know a Xayah ultimate or something, as well as Hook and his current ultimate. It's just so hard to play into Gragas with the kit that he has available, right? He's got regen with his passive. He can do pretty good poke with his Qs. They also give you vision. His W is like not super useful in terms of like him being a like support, but like it's really nice to have AoE wave clear early game, and it's pretty useful for that. it's also just nice to proc your regen on, so valuable there. And then like his E is just again, it's a nice body slam flash. Flash like rocket belt, flash body slam cask is a super popular mechanical combo that we see, and it's super useful. But at the same time, if you pick like an engaged support like a Nautilus, Alistar, Galio set into him, he has the explosive cast as well to just knock people away. Just an insanely good support. Big fan of how he's playing in the meta. Jax Vlad, probably the best, not the best mid laner, one of the better mid laners, and then OMG just respond with the correct answer here, which is the Kassadin. You could go Akali here, but I don't love that. Like I said, I think Akali requires a little bit too much in terms of mechanics when you're trying to play against a Vlad in lane, it feels like, and like I just don't love it. I also just love Kassadin hyperscaling because like 3 items you're basically guaranteed to get to. So if you don't like troll your build like, some Korean players, and you just go Seraph's crown and then Rabadon's, you will always have 3 items and you will delete people. Second ban phase, like the Ezreal ban, no ADCs on the board. Don't like the Lee Sin ban. I'm telling you all, this champion is a fraud. He's a scrim god. I guarantee you there are games where, like, these guys load up with Lee Sin and, like, the Lee Sin drops, like, 20 kills, and it's because it's scrims and, like, he's a scrim god. He's not a good champion. Don't like the Ashe ban. So the reason that I think he would ban Ashe is if like Lucian is off the board and Varus is off the board, but neither of those champions are off the board, and they both beat Ashe super hard right now, so there's no reason to pick her. Um, yeah, I don't love it. I don't love the Ashe ban here. We've seen it, and I can't wait to talk about the Trace Esports KBG game, but I'm trying to like save myself, like I'm saving myself for marriage, except that one's not on purpose. To talk about that game last because I'm really, really excited about it and I want to go way, way, way in too much depth. So I want to like take a day and just fucking speak about that game. Kha'Zix's ban here. I guess it's fine. I don't really have an opinion on it. I don't love Kha'Zix in the meta right now. I don't really hate him. Like I think he's fine. I think that like with what is around the meta game, that's what I mean by meta. I think that he's like okay into a lot of that stuff, so he's sort of like creeping back in as the hyper carry jungler that we all know, love, and hate. R4 Zeri makes sense. Probably the best ADC still up. And then we see Tristana. So I'll talk about Tristana in just a second. Tristana Vi. So first of all, I like this team composition a lot. It's this J team composition is really, really good because it protects Tristana from dive incredibly well with Jax Gragas, but at the same time, Tristana also has the ability to like follow up on maybe a bunch of Vladimir damage or a bunch of Vi damage that like it's just built, I think, in essence around this champion right here. And I really do like it. I don't love that it's Tristana. I think that I'd prefer like a Zeri here or like, another high power ADC. But like in terms of high powered ADC, I guess Tristana is probably like the second best. Cause like Poke, Varus, Kaisa, Lucian isn't really that good here in terms of like how the team composition is built, so I don't mind her. And we'll also, I don't think I have damage stats. I might go to like, I think Stream Tenders had him on the stream or something. But the damage stats for X1 after these games is insane. Volibear is fine here. Like, he does effectively the same thing as Vi for what is a very similar team comp. But I think that they lose top early. They're probably going to lose support because Ornn Gragas is an insanely hard matchup to win as the Ornn. Cast Vlad goes Vlad's favor early, so that's another L. And then Zeri Tristana I think is relatively even in terms of like scaling, but I think that Zeri is probably better early, so that's what I'd be worried about. And again, this is another like I'm gonna highlight. These approval ratings are more popularity contests than anything, But I do want to highlight that, like, I don't think a lot of people had J-Team on their radar going into this game. Like, I knew X1 was, like, relatively good. I spoke about it on Twitter as well. If you want to go check those tweets, I always have the receipts. I don't delete stuff, so yeah. Unless I, like, fuck up on grammar. But I knew X1 was very good, but I didn't know how good he was, because, like, it's very hard to tell the value of an ADC, especially in these first few games, because it's a really low sample size right now, right? I think most of the teams have 2 to 3 games played, so I'm expecting to see some variance, and I was like, okay, well, maybe he just, like, had a heater of a day, and, like, we go next and we see, right? So I want to talk about him mostly today is the goal. Um, Interesting Raptors start here. So a lot of the times I am a big advocate for the red Krugs or blue start. I'm not a huge fan of starting Raptors, Wolves, or Gromp. Um, Gromp, because if you're going to start on this side of the map, blue is just better. Gromp isn't actually that much faster. Wolves, because it puts you in a really weird spot for clear. And same thing with Raptors, where like if you're going to do this, I think you're basically either like you have to go this way and leave behind 2 of your camps, or you have to go this way and leave behind your blue side. And so you're going to be a couple camps behind Vi. And with conservation stacks, especially early game, how important it is to get those off on a regular timer and like how much we see the jungle meta about like farming right now. I don't love that. If you're playing like a really low econ champion like the Volibear, I think is pretty low econ, you might be able to get away with it because he really only needs like 2 to 3 items, or he really only needs like 1 item, I think, before he's like actually playable. That being like Sunder, and I think that like second item is just a very nice. What are we looking at for runes? Pretty standard stuff. I like that the Camille goes Giant Slayer here. I've talked about it a bunch, but I don't like it when Camille's go Scorch because it doesn't actually do that much damage and it doesn't give them a lot of value, especially like into the late game. Because like in PC, it's taken for like surviving laning phase, but like even though you're gonna get shit stomped in laning phase as Camille versus a Jax, you're not getting shit stomped that badly. Also Jax going brutal is interesting as well. Uh, a lot of people have dropped brutal in favor of like Gathering Storm on ADCs. I really love that J Team has 3 brutals. I think that brutal versus Gathering Storm is a math mistake because like it takes about 14 to 15 minutes for Gathering Storm to get to like 1280, which brutal is just straight up 1280 on hit. So I think it's technically like true damage the way that it's applied, but it's just so valuable, and I think it's just straight up better. Interesting here, Cassidon going first strike and not going blue runes. Um, I'm not a huge fan of first strike on Cassidon to begin with. I feel like his rat, like especially in this matchup too, where he has like similar range to Vladimir. I prefer like the Conqueror, the Fleet Footwork, which I think gets you through lane a lot easier. But this is like not a bad set in terms of what I'm looking for. Bone plating is interesting there. Greg could go the second wind. I think is probably more effective. I will be interested to see what Inyan's clear looks like here, because this means to me that he's either gonna do like starting Raptors to me means that you're like 2 camping or like 3 camping into a top gank here, or you're gonna like 2 camp, 3 camp into like a mid gank, because there's no reason to start Raptors right and then path this way and then loop back around, because what you're doing is you're just taking extra time, right? Because if you just path straight down, we're gonna use this side of the jungle as an example, right? Look about how long that takes versus like how much extra distance if you were to like unfold this, right? So like you have this here, you're basically taking we're going to use a different color. Let's go back. Right, so if you take like one edge to the other edge, you're basically taking about double the distance, right, with these two, because they're basically parallel lines. So I really hope that he has some sort of a plan here from a Raptors start, because otherwise it's not great. Also, you can just see here, it's impossible for the captain to play right now. And this is where I think things like Fleet come in super well, because it's just an easy way to get back some of that like HP or mana that you might really need when like the wave gets shoved under your turret. Um, it's also I think just really hard to proc first strike effectively against a Vladimir, right? And so I don't love it. So now that I'm like thinking about it, I think he started Raptors because he's worried about an invade. So given that he's doing this pathing, he's worried about an invade. That's the only so like the only logical reason to start Raptors, right, is one is like I said, like a cheese gank level 2 or 3 here. Um the other is that like you're worried about an early invade from Vi. But to me, if you're worried about an early invade from Vi, that means you just don't know how to play the map correctly, right? Because it's a math equation where you see 1 2, you see right, you see 1 2 3 4, right? So you know that there are 4 people on the map. You don't know where Vi is. If you put a ward here, Vi shows suddenly there are 5 people. Everyone's accounted for, which means that you know that this side of the map is clear. You can invade. And so I don't love that because that to me means that there's a lack of deep thought about how he can play the jungle game. I also don't think that Volibear should ever be scared of an early skirmish. Like I think that you want to invade and like try to find that early fight. Like you're just as good as I in the early game, especially with the W. This is just like I don't know if this is intentional between SMK and Indian, but it's a really nice play where he like he flashes over the wall and then SNK hits it so that he's safe. I don't know if he's actually safe though, but we'll see. Nope. I mean, good chase by DY, and again, like I don't love this Raptors pathing. I don't know if they have early vision or something. He just like or if CF17 takes a fucking miracle invade into blue, because it doesn't look like there are any wards up here. They might have saw it earlier and he cleared one and I just missed it. But yeah, I don't love this as a like I don't love his pathing here because I think if he starts like red and goes this way, he maybe makes it here in time to actually have a fight. I also don't love that there was no vision in like these areas of the map in terms of like protecting your blue buff, and so that you know like hey we can try to make some sort of a trade. I also just like this pathing. I like the pathing here from CF17 is pretty good because it's really hard to counter invade, right? Like there's no way to get to the red side of the map here. So pretty good start for J team. Like I said, I also don't think that like I think that you have to be aware of an invade here if you're OMG, because like you drafted like I'd say 2.5 to 3 losing lanes. I think bot lane's gonna be like relatively even, but it'll lose like maybe the first couple of waves. I don't know. Because like Tristana early game does have a very good clear. I think like Zeri also can sort of match it though, so I'm not really sure about how that bot lane dynamic's supposed to go. I mean, at this point, I think it's really hard because Gragas with red buff feels really annoying. They go for a regank here. So, I mean, this is really just like, bring the Vi out, let her clear a little bit, just make sure she's not falling behind on camps, and then just zone in OMG off of XP and gold here and get a couple plates for yourself. Again, Tristana is a menace at taking down towers. It's the Yordle difference, both Ziggs and Tristana. And then when OMG step up here, because I think they think that there's no jungle intervention, right? They step forward, Vi just ganks them, and it's Jover. Tristana has no kills. What the fuck? Why didn't they give Tristana a kill? I don't love that they didn't give X1 a kill there, because I feel like he's the person you want to be giving kills in this scenario. So I don't love that he doesn't have kills. Although he does get a bunch of plate gold, right? He's still relatively far ahead. But I don't love that he doesn't get anything from that gank besides the assist gold. Well, I talk him up and he dies, so egg on my face, I guess. I mean, DY can catch this wave at least. Cause like, yeah, I don't love seeing my Gragas 201. I gotta redo those slashes. Those look like ass. I don't love seeing this. Well, my Tristana stat line looks like this. And obviously, like, you can exclude one. Like, it's really 101, but I don't love that it's, like, no kills on Tristana, because that is a lot of gold that she's losing out on. The more kills you have as a support is, like, generally my rule is, like, the more kills you have as a support, unless it's, like, literally unavoidable, right? And it's like, oh, well, I need to get the kill or I'm trolling. Like, the more kills you have is generally worse, because it means that that's something that your ADC or, like, someone else on your team that's maybe going to have a little bit better use of that gold in terms of offensive stats isn't getting. And they're coming for a regank. I mean, this is just good play here. Just, like, show bot and, like, make them fear, what's going to happen here. Because they know they used Orin Ultimate, so they might be able to make a regank. Looks like they're not actually going to do it, but they're just going to threaten it, which is fine. Like, just make sure they stay relatively scared. Oh, this is unlucky, so CF17 goes, grabs that, and then by the time he comes back, there's a ward. It seems like, just based off the movement, he's aware that there could be another ward in this brush. And so, like, you see him move out of that, like, brush right there. Try brush in that side. So they get bot shove, and then they should move to Drake. Again, just good, simple play here. You can see that this Camille has top shove, so I'd expect the OMG team here to go for Herald, but they're starting this up so late that X1 can make it to top side before they can actually get the fight, or they can actually get the Herald, which is not good, because that means that it is now time for a fight. This is about as bad as it gets for OMG. You're gonna get double objective. I don't. So I think that there is a world in which OMG can fight this, but I actually don't mind that they're not fighting this. It makes a lot of sense, right? You're down 2k gold early, like, although your jungler scales slightly later or slightly worse the later the game goes, like, you have a really scaling AP carry in terms of the Kassadin. Your Zeri scales incredibly well. Ornn is a great scaler as well. Like, all of these three scale incredibly well. I just think that your top side doesn't outscale, like the Vi and the Jax probably outscale, and then the Tristana is like Tristana Zeri to me is like whoever gets ahead more is gonna scale harder. Like, I think they have the similar amount of scaling, but like whoever just gets the lead is gonna scale harder. And so I don't mind that you're not playing to like try to get a lead now or like try to make a miracle happen, and you're just gonna give it up and like live to fight another day. Cause like I will complain about teams sometimes not contesting like third Drake or Baron, because to me that's like a sign of like mentally having given up. You're like, we're going next. Like, there's no point in fighting it, but like you're giving over Soul, you're giving over Baron. Those things are things that end games, right? Rift Herald doesn't end a game, it makes it faster. And like that's not like a game ender. There are still ways to come back from that, right? And what's worse is if the enemy team has Rift Herald and 3 kills. And so in this scenario, I think it's one of those where it's like, hey, we don't want them to have Rift Herald and 3 kills, and maybe we trade like 1 or 2 back. We'd rather just let them have Rift Herald. And I think it's a very good decision. Indiana might go for a Miracle Smite steal. We'll see, though. No, wow. Again, I say something and then they just do the opposite. So, yeah, since I just said I liked them backing off, I don't like this contest. I think it's really fucking bad. I think that, first of all, you don't have any angle with Gragas here. Right, we see the explosive cast makes this just super hard to execute, and then like I don't know, I don't think there was ever any chance that you actually got Herald unless you somehow got the eye, and it doesn't look like that's gonna happen. Inian's dead here, Tristana bomb, so it's a one. I mean, it's not as bad as it could have been. I don't mind going for Miracle Smite Steal sometimes. Like, it's sometimes it just works out, and it's like, okay, cool. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. It's just like pretty meh. Tristana's gonna kill this turret. Do they get another Herald charge? They do. It's very good for them. So what even actually happens here? Let's talk about this a little bit. So because the Volibear died, they are able to get a 3v4. Soldier jumps under turret. This is another really nice thing about Vladimir is that like turret diving with him is super easy because you get under turret, you pop your E, and then once the turret aggro's on you and like fires a shot, you go into pool, you nullify a lot of that damage, and then the turret will retarget and re-aim, and by that time the Tristana here will have killed the Rift Herald or killed the turret. So it gets like it gets 2 shots off onto CF17. And then the rest of the team there is just diving onto the back line. And yeah, it's really well played from J team. Again, I want to highlight. I think that the going for the turret there, because there's a world in which X1 goes for kills, but I think going for the turret is the smarter decision, and I really like that. I hope we get an actual team fight so that I can talk about X1's mechanics because he had some really fucking good ones in the previous game, but it doesn't look like that today is going to be one of those games. It looks like this might be a little bit of a little bit of a stomp. Anything interesting? I've talked about it before. I'm not a huge fan of Dead Man's First on Gragas. Uh, I also I like Mercs here actually. I think I think DY is right here. So I think that generally you have 2 options here, right? You build Mercs or you build Plated. Unless you are the ADC or the mid laner, in which case you build Vamp Boots as an alternative or the AP Boots. I don't know what they're called. Ionian are like okay right now. The attack speed boots are like below average. And then like I would never build the lethality boots unless you're aiming to troll your team. So that's my take on it. But I actually like Mercs here, right? Ornn is a little bit of AP. I don't think he's actually that much AP. He's mostly max health, but like AP some AP, and then some AP as well. Like there's actually a good amount of AP on the enemy team, and so I don't think that the Merc Spy is actually that bad, especially when you're stacking armor first, right? That's what I really like about it is like he's recognizing that like oh like armor is getting stacked here, so I'm gonna buy the or like I already have armor. There's no point to index into more armor when there's like a lot of AP on the enemy team. So he buys mercs. It's a really small, but like a really I think an important part that like shows that he is actively thinking about the game. And I like to see that. I'm not a huge fan of Dead Man's First in general. I've spoken about it before, but I think Warmogs is just better within what supports aim to do right now. Like I really like being able to go in and then like take and engage, and then once you take and engage, you like flash out, body slam out, and then once you do that, like, 5, 6 seconds later, if the fight's still going on, you're basically at half health again. And then you're able to come in and like play as a secondary bruiser with like your damage that you have as a tank. Although it's not much, it's still meaningful damage a lot of the time, especially if you're like an Ornn or a Gragas, who like do probably the most damage out of any of the tanks right now. Um, so you can see here, just get them mid prio and they're gonna invade blue. This is one of the nice. This is one of the nice and yet awful things about Infernal Rift, and I don't know if they're ever gonna change the rifts. This is something that I'd wish they'd change, which is this gap right here. Maybe like make the gap over here, like cut off this part of the wall instead. Like where I'm creating right now, because what this gap being open does is it allows for these super easy invades, right? Because normally soldier couldn't take part in this invade at all. He'd have to like walk all the way around, and he doesn't really have the time to do that, or he'd have to walk through here, which puts him in danger of the volley bear. So instead, he can just shove mid pretty easily and then just like walk straight through here and take the blue buff. Um, I imagine they're gonna just put extremity pressure on the map now. Is the bot turret still standing? Yeah, so they're probably going to go, I would imagine. You got the mid prio, so you push that out, and then you go bot turret, and then you lane swap the Tristana up here, put the Jax down at the bottom lane, drawing a bunch of fucking arrows for no reason. But you lane swap Tristana and Jax, and then once you do that, you have the Tristana push in and get the top turret as well. Just basically feed a bunch of gold. Again, X1 taking the turret is just. I love players that are farm obsessed in this game because it means that you understand what your win condition is. Because, like, a lot of the APAC players, I think, like, and like EU players, I watched CLF today, Shokdefaye or Shokafaye. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I probably butchered it, but when you watch that, you'll notice a lot of the players don't actually farm correctly, and they're not like maximizing how much they're farming. They're not pathing to clear their jungle 100% of the time, right? Because you can, if you start blue or you start red, you can do a full rotation of, right, you can go red, Krugs, Raptors, Wolves, Blue, Grump, right? That's a full rotation. So when you do that, you can actually get a secondary rotation of the small camps in a lot of the times before your buffs spawn. So what you'll see a lot of pro players and pro teams doing in China specifically, because APAC doesn't do this because they're not as like as efficient as farming, is you'll see like a double rotation of the small buffs before the double rotation of the big buffs. So the small buffs and big buff will get desynced, but like they will sync up again eventually, and it doesn't even matter that they're desynced that much, right? But it's just like you are making sure like that by the time the UI would even see the camps have spawned, they're on top of them, the camps are dead. It's just good play. I like to see it. Anytime anybody's farm obsessed, they get a thumbs up from me, and that's what I'm giving X1. So you can see here, right? And this is the sort of stuff that annoys me about uh non-Chinese teams. Again, I watched CLF earlier, so this is where a lot of these rants are coming from. If you're interested, it's on the Wild Outplay channel, the same channel that I'm watching this VOD on as well. So you all should check that out as well. It's a very good China or very good French tournament. But what you see a lot of the times in that tournament is for no reason the losing team will just get pushed and they'll just get a turret, and it's like that's not how it's supposed to work. Because if you're ahead, you can just push out turrets harder, right? They send two people bot or they send one person bot. No, they send two people bot. They send Zeri Orn. Zeri dies though. That's why I was like, they sent two people bot. Right? They send three top. They send two bot. So three, and then two, and then they have this versus a one, and then a four, and then you can see mid lane right there is even. So nothing happening there. So they let mid wave push in, and then they just continue to push this in, right? And so this is the value of just being ahead. It means that you can force harder on the enemy team. And like even though they're attempting to get this turret, there's no actual value that they get from it, right? Because they're not able to push into the tier 2 without actually just doing a good old tier 2 for base trade. And then I love that they push out mid wave before recalling. Oh my god, I don't know. I love that they get out the mid-wave push before recalling. It's just good fundies. And then, what did I say is going to happen? They are going to lane swap topside, put this just on a topside, she will demolish this turret, and then you move on with your life. I'd expect they're actually going to try to demolish into this turret at least as well, because like you can see over here, there's zero map control because they have no turrets right now. And it's not fun to play, especially because like this area is super vulnerable. So they're having to dedicate like the Orn hover here when you'd like to maybe put him topside like over here to stop this dive, but they can't really do that because if they do, this area is super vulnerable. And there's no real safe space over here either because they did lose this tier 1 mid earlier. So again, sort of what I mean about this Zeri being just super vulnerable, right? They see her on wave, and then this Vi just goes directly on top of her when she comes to try to help the Ornn once he's getting ganked. And then they just take a 2v4 basically and win it. This game is over. Like you can just see gold leads bot 2k, 4k in total. Mid's pretty even. That's surprising. And then jungle 2k. Top's pretty even as well, which is interesting. This is a good old Baron waiting room, was what I like to call it. 'Cause it feels pretty hard to push in the tier 2 turrets here without some sort of mistake, right? Like what we saw earlier, how they had too many people topside and then their bot side ends up getting just owned. I don't love that they're not freezing that. I feel like freezing that is way better. Nobody really freezes on sides, which is I think an issue. I feel like freezing on sides is just way better than it looks right now. I'm a bit sad because I wanted to talk about X1, but I haven't gotten the chance because he's doing just Tristana things. It's like he's on Ziggs duty, but as an ADC, like he's not getting to play a ton. Got a lot of like interesting team fights. Wait, hold up, maybe? Nope, it was just the Camille and the Catherine ganking the Jax. I mean, this is a good catch out from OMG. Like, get the Jax, get another kill with the Ornn off of it. You can't do Baron because, again, Vi and Tristana are hyper-fed, but, you know. Does lead to a bounty. It's probably going to be about 600-700 gold swing. More than I thought. It went from like 7k to 5k. It's not a bad, it's not a bad fight in terms of what they got out of it. Basically no deaths. I'm sort of skipping ahead because I just want to find a team fight that's not kind of boring and well, we'd like to find something to do that's not, because at this point it's like all this gameplay can be written off. as like, well, no matter what happens here, they're 4.9k ahead, and they were basically 7k ahead beforehand. So how are they actually going to win a team fight effectively? That's not, finding a bunch of picks, which it looks like they might. Okay, we're gonna actually have a chance to talk about X1 here, which is nice. So first of all, really fucking good buffer. I'm pretty sure that he buffered through that. Doesn't look like he got knocked up. Gets the kill onto the Cassidon. They get the Drake here. Does he go for this? So just I'm gonna not talk about this, but I just this is such great fucking movement that like 90% of ADCs don't do. So first of all, I really like his positioning, right? He's just kind of sat here behind his support. He doesn't move in front of him. He doesn't like try to do anything weird. Like he's just kind of sitting here. And then he like I don't know if this is intentional or not because it looks like that's that's not the intended interaction if I had to guess. If it is, it's a really fucking good buffer because like you can see here, the Ornn ult hits him but he's buffered out of it, which is again very good buffer. Um, Goats to kill on the Castle. I don't love that he has to flash there, but it's fine. And then I really like this positioning because again a lot of ADCs would stand like right here. He's standing in the brush, which means that it's hard for. So it means that if they come over the wall immediately, they don't get vision on him, right? So that's benefit number one. And then benefit number two is like it's actually a relatively safe position because you can hop back over this wall because you got jump reset. And then like he steps forward to try to get more autos, but it's fine. And then you can see here he's just like he's very good at movement, and that's like he's just again that's another one of those like the Ornn had him dead to rights. He just jumps out, and he's just like they can't kill him based on how he's positioning at this point, right? Because if they go in, there's literally a chance that he just runs them down because he's super strong right now. Like the benefit of X1 being where he is that he's super strong, like, and that's great. But I also want to highlight that I think that his movement is genuinely one of the best we have in WRL, and like a lot of other ADCs don't do this, which is why I think it's super cool. Doesn't look like they'll be able to get anything in terms of like Baron. Don't love Camille Blade of the Ruined King second here. I think that Camille gets a big advantage from Jax not matching the Hullbreaker second, right? Going the Riftmaker instead because of how it interacts with his W and his AP ratios on his ult as well. So I'm not a huge fan of going the Blade of the Ruined King second. I think that that actually ends up taking a lot away from you in terms of how you can pressure Jax on the map. Although I understand the idea here is that Camille's trying to just play to fucking get a bunch of kills and win the game. Get Hullbreaker third anyway, so it's fine. Honestly, I don't even know if it's worth buying Hullbreaker this game actually, because I don't think there's ever going to be a time where like Camille's super split pushing. I think that it's one of those maybe you don't actually buy it because of like the scenario that you're in specifically in this game. It's hard for me to say. I think that that's something that like is definitely a consideration though. Like maybe if you go Sterix here, you have a better shot at winning the game because you're not actually going to be proccing Hullbreaker all that much. Like this is the first time it's really been actually useful. So yeah, it's I'm not convinced that like something like Sterix would be 100% better, but it's also just like it's definitely a possibility that I wouldn't immediately write off at this point. Wait, this is a catch out onto the Ornn. Yeah, so they catch out the Orn here. Just very good. Again, like, you don't even have to... Although I like when you start at Baron, I'm pretty sure it's the Trace Esports KBG series, which I'll get to talk about. I'm so fucking ready for that series. I'm so fucking ready. Um, like, you can just, like, force Baron, and, like, especially because Baron's really easy to do with the team comp they have, right? Like, Jax, Tristana, melt it, so they really probably feel like they need to get some vision, which is really hard to do when you have a Vi on the enemy team who can really lock you down. I don't love that the Ornn wasn't just queuing over this wall constantly, because his Q works like Gragas Q as well, where you get vision in a small circle around it. Okay, we have Elder. Are they giving? No, they're fighting. Okay. This might be an involuntary give here. So you can see, I'm gonna do a little bit of psychology here because I don't know. But to me, this movement seems like he's either trying to like auto the Camille or get out of pit, which both are very good choices here. I think so. I like that he's moving out. Yeah, so you can see there. I think that that's him being able to get out of pit because you can see that he moves forward to and then he kind of goes back and then he goes forward and then he goes back and then he finally gets out of pit, which like to me is I like that he's not comfortable in pit. Like I don't love it when players sit in pit and just like do the Drake from here because you're super vulnerable to Ornn, you're super vulnerable to Cassin, you're super vulnerable to Volibear. And so I like that he is giving himself space to play with. Especially because like if you have very good movement, I think that you want to leverage that, and to do that, you want to have the most space to work with. And if you're pinned up against the wall, it maybe doesn't necessarily matter how your movement looks if you can't actually make moves. Does Waha not have CSS QSS? Again, this is why you need QSS in the Ornn Gragas matchup. This happens if you're playing a good Gragas every single time as Ornn. It's why I lose my mind when Korean supports don't fucking build QSS. It's because you're going to lose the matchup to the stuff like this every time. Let's go back to focusing on X1 before I lose my fucking mind. Nothing interesting so far. Just doing his civic Tristana duties, autoing people, and trying to kill them. I don't know if it's because his like teammates are baiting for him or what, but he's just again it's he's like not taking a lot of damage because like he definitely has regen some from BT, but like it doesn't feel like he takes a lot of damage. Uh, so I love this move from him and Soldier. I love this because he has jump, he has flash, so he's not actually in danger. I'm loving how he navigates this team fight. I am just don't love that, but again, being hyperfed here helps, but like fuck. Outside of that like Camille fight, right? Like outside of this specific interaction where he literally jumps on top of the Camille. Look at how little damage he's taking and how much damage he's able to do through just good positioning within the team fight. Like he eats the meteor, he's like most of this damage that's being done to him is being done by the Elder Drake. Right? Every single point of damage at this point, like he took small amounts from meteor, most from the Elder Drake. No damage. getting autos off, getting autos off. And then comparatively, like look at you and his inability to do so. Which is again a big factor is due to the range, and like I've talked shit on Shock Blaster, but it's very good for times like these. Like I think the biggest fumble is him just eating the Ornn QE here. But like it doesn't end up punishing him, so sometimes you can get away with one or two and it's fine. But again, I also like that he's letting his teammates bait for him, but I just think it's really good movement and I love his presence within a team fight. How long did that take? Because I feel like that was a quick one. We'll see. That was not a quick one. Damn, that felt way faster. We'll end this one here, and then probably talk about this tomorrow. Yeah, we'll do it tomorrow. Okay, bye.